you're ready, I'm ready.
Are you outside?
Yeah, it was bad. I set up in my basement, and then I realized I'm by like the real only position I could be in. I'm by our little beer fridge, so I'm hearing the humming. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go outside. Well, my uncle's doing work in my parents' bedroom, so I'm like, I need to go outside. Now I'm outside and I'm hearing owls, and I'm like, well, this is gonna be a trip. Hopefully, I can, and maybe
So
post.
there looks like there's a light shining behind my head.
Yes, it was like your halo. Ooh, there we go. I was saying we got to get
It's not too
excited.
dark, is
We
it?
got the Mount Rushmore of guests on today. So, you ready?
Sure, let's go, man.
Awesome.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I don't think that's a relevant question.
Perfect. I don't think so. This is about our lives. This is about American lives. And it should not be partisan. Science should not be partisan.
At some point, the daily drumbeat of depression and terror veers into panic porn. FDR said the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
I think the question is,
News sources have to rein it in.
I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of retarded.
We need the news to calm down and treat us like adults.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? And thanks for joining me again. As you can see, I'm not even in the studio, and we're jazzing it up by going through Zoom. But the advantage of going through Zoom is we get to reach our very special guests, and he can't hide from us. So everybody needs to get excited because my favorite guest, and from the audience's feedback, their favorite guest, we've got the legendary Paul Brown joining us again. Paul, how are you, sir?
I'm doing terrifically, and thank you for that intro. And you are in a studio. You're in nature's studio.
That's it. When you're in nature, you're in God's studio. Always.
Exactly.
So Paul, I want to start off with this because since we're talking about the locations we're in. So Paul, it was recently his birthday, and I want you to tell us a bit about your awesome birthday gift. But before you tell us about it, Paul, I noticed that the license plate said Maryland. Are you no longer in Pennsylvania?
I was never in Pennsylvania.
Really? See, that's how much I paid attention. It was always that. Were you just that close that you were just taking trips all the time for fun?
What do you mean?
Well, you would come and like see the professors just to say hi.
It's
and
only
then
an hour.
you'd go golfing.
It's only an hour away.
Really? I didn't
Yeah,
realize.
so where I live in Maryland, if you go up the road, if you go west of us, probably, I don't know, 8 to 10 miles, you're in the shortest part of Maryland. It's a 6 month. I think it's only 4 miles. Pennsylvania, Maryland, West Virginia. So 4 miles, you go to 3 different states.
Oh, wow.
Where I live, it's 11 miles. So you start at the Pennsylvania border, go 11 miles, and then you're in West Virginia.
That's pretty awesome. And then I got to imagine, and DC's right there too.
DC's only about 60 miles, east of us.
That's not bad.
Baltimore is about 60 miles east of us.
So tell us about Paul, you got yourself an awesome birthday present for yourself. Lay it on us. What'd you get yourself?
So first, I've always, one of my dreams was to have a 55, 56, or 57 T-Bird convertible, red and black. So this summer I said, why wait? I'm gonna look for one, and I'm gonna see what I can do. So I looked on the internet, looked everywhere, and the cheapest I could find anything was $28,000. So I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. So I was also looking, and I saw a TR6, a red and black one. He was selling it in Wisconsin. I thought, okay, I'm gonna have to drive to Wisconsin to pick me up a car. We were heading towards Frederick one Sunday afternoon, and we're driving along. We were actually going to go to some garden someplace. We're driving along, and all of a sudden, on the left-hand side of the road, here's this black and red TR6 sitting with a for sale sign on. I was like, meant to be.
It's like fate. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. It's like it fell from the sky, and here it is. So I bought it
See,
for
even the pros
myself,
are psyched.
for my 65th birthday.
I love it. I love it. And look how sharp you look. I'm putting the picture up on the screen. I just love the picture. It fits you perfectly. And when I was talking to you on the phone today, you're living the dream. Just get in your dream car, ride through the park. I mean, you can't beat that.
No,
And
no.
you look good in it too.
Thank you, thank you.
So
Where's the picture? I don't see it.
it's right here.
Oh,
No.
oh, you're gonna add it later.
Yeah.
Ah,
You know what's funny is I do that all the time. We're in the studio and I'm like on the screen and I have to like describe it to the person. Listen, not all of us can be Joe Rogan just yet. To come is a TV screen, but as of now, it's just imaginary.
right.
Paul's in his car.
There it is. Look at it. Isn't it beautiful?
So Paul,
So
how
so
long
here's
have you
the
had it then?
well, I've only had it for almost 3 months.
Okay.
So I bought it, and 2 weeks after I bought it, I had total knee replacement.
That's right. Right.
So it sat in the garage. I drove it once, sat in the garage, and then I finally got okay to drive. But I wasn't real confident because it's a stick, right? So I wasn't real confident with the my knee and how it's going to work with the clutch and stuff. So I didn't drive it. First time I drove it was probably 2 weeks ago. So
And how'd that feel?
felt great, man.
Yeah,
Felt great.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So
And you know, anytime you get a new car, it's kind of like you got to get used to all of its idiosyncrasies, you know, how the clutch works and, you know, everything. So I'm starting to get to the point where now I get the balance between the clutch and the gas and you know, peeling out. Oh, no, I don't do that. And
I don't do that. No.
no, I don't do that. And then, you know, all that. It's fun. It's
And
because I don't take it on any major roads. I don't take it on the highway. I take it all the
Okay.
all the little back roads and stuff, which is cool anyway. I mean,
right. That's the only place you want it.
right.
So what's really cool is, and this is what I find so unique about cars in general, is how literally every car drives different. I mean, you could have a Jeep from 2000 that is not going to ride the same as a brand new Jeep right now. So I have a new Challenger, and I got it about a year ago, and I was debating. They had the new Jeep come out, the new Jeep truck, and I think it looks really sharp. I was loving it, and plus, who doesn't want to be one of the first to get, you know, one of the new style cars? I drove that thing. It was so miserable in how much you felt every bump. It was worse than a Wrangler, because even Wranglers you feel the road, and this one you're just like, "Good." And I'm like, what is the point of this? When I was, you know, my Challenger, oh my God, it's like it's my baby. I can't.
Like butter.
But
It's like driving butter.
like butter. And
Like butter.
and I told my mom when I first got one, I was like, this is the worst thing you could put in a car, because now you've turned my car into a video game. On the dash, like right under the speedometer, it says my fastest time going 0 to 60. I'm like, well, this probably is the best.
No
But,
way.
you know, it develops probably not the best habits, but also I've never felt safer. Like if I do take that thing on the freeway, and man, nothing's slowing me down. You
I
just
tell you.
cut right
tell you.
in. I mean, but
It's
I
funny
don't
you
do
talk-
that personally.
Yeah, no, I never done that. So it's funny, the Jeep, when I first was going to buy a Jeep, I looked at the Wrangler. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna be so cool in this Wrangler, you know, and you know, rugged, blah blah blah. I got in that thing, I was like, it beat the hell out of me. It was, it's like,
Oh yeah.
no, I don't want that.
It is funny. It was the only enticing thing for me, and I had a best friend that had a Jeep Wrangler, and it was his favorite part. But we're all buying Jeep Wranglers not for the car as much as we are the ability. Like, you have a convertible. That's all we want to be able to turn our rugged car into a convertible. So we take the doors off, the top down, and then so just to give you a little story, we went to this concert. It was a G-Eazy concert. So it's this, common rapper that everybody loves. We couldn't be more excited. We're going to treat ourselves. It's probably mid to late August. So we take the doors off. We take the top off. It's a beautiful August day. So we spend the day tailgating. There's all these people. It's amazing. Go to the concert. Fantastic. It's time to go home. And it's probably about 12 o'clock and maybe 1 o'clock. And we get in that car, and we had about a 30-minute drive, and it was literally the most miserable time I've ever had in a car in my life. It was freezing, and he's going like 25 in a 45 zone. We're like, we can't go on the freeway. It was terrible,
Right.
but during the day, it was great.
That's funny.
Yeah. And the other thing about Jeeps is not to just turn this into a Jeep trash fest, but they do not warm up in the winter. So it's like everybody buys a Jeep to have a Jeep, but it's like when the practicality of having one is not there. You're there like you can't heat the car up. It's not very smooth. And who's taking their Jeep up a mountain? Maybe that's the only person that should have one. I won't refute it.
I think that's why younger people buy them. It's not necessarily to take it up a mountain, but look at the commercials. I can take it over sand dunes. I can run it through streams. I can go across fields. I can go anywhere with this Jeep that I want to go. But when would you do that?
Plus, especially my generation, we're not
Yeah.
a generation of good drivers. If I'm going to be frank.
Would you say they were good drivers?
Oh, they're not. They are
Yeah.
not. We are not a generation of good
Well,
drivers.
And here's why. Oh, let me see. Let me look at my phone. And driving. I passed a lady today. Actually, she was the local taxi service. She had a cigarette in one hand, her phone in the other, and she's driving, looking at her
Oh,
phone,
my God.
smoking, and I was like, guess what's taxi company I'm not going to get?
Yeah, exactly. Trying
It's
to
great.
get the sun out of my face. No, but what's funny is my dad was probably like 3 years ago. He's driving to work, and he's just stopped at a light in the center of downtown Cleveland and just gets totally rear-ended by this girl, probably about my age. And she comes running out. I'm so sorry. I was playing Pokemon Go, and there was a Pokemon in the middle of the street. And you're like, this is what we at least it was honest. But
Yeah, true.
oh, Paul, I got another. This redeemed my faith in humanity. We were golfing about like a month and a half ago, and we go through 8 holes. Look at my buddy. There's no one behind us. It's pretty much the end of the night. And I go, hey, man, the 3rd hole's right there. We could just kind of cut over. And he's like, oh, let's do it. So we go all the way through again to the 8th hole. And we're rolling up to the 8th hole, and one of the workers is coming up on their golf cart. And we're like, oh, God, we're probably in trouble. Like, who knows what's going to come of this? And he goes, hey, you drive a Altima, a Volkswagen Altima or whatever? And my buddy goes, yeah, that's me. He goes, oh, well, some guy just totally rear-ended your car, and he's hanging out waiting for you if you want to go get it. We're like, what? I mean, it totally redeemed my faith in humanity, but also we're like, well, can we just finish this 8th hole? So 2 times through, we never got to play the 9, and at least there's some good people out
That's
there.
funny. Was he an older guy?
The kid, he was with like his father who was older, and then there was the guy was probably like maybe 4 or 5 years older than us.
Mm-hmm.
But have you gotten to play a lot of golf this summer?
None.
Oh yeah, that's right, because your knee.
Yeah. I was
How's
gonna
that
go this morning because my knee's been feeling good, but I didn't get a chance to get out and swing a club. So I haven't swung the club yet. So I'm not sure, with the torque and stuff on the knee, I'm not sure if it's going to alter my swing, and I don't really want to do that. So I'm waiting to get a chance to at least swing a club and see.
Right, hit the driving range or something.
Yeah.
That's good.
But I'm planning a trip to Ohio. So I need to get out at least once or twice and hit a ball so I don't look totally ridiculous.
Well, yeah, you got to test that because I'm not letting you leave this state without playing golf with me.
Exactly.
So with the awkwardness of even just displaying photos and connecting with friends through these types of apps, speaking to somebody who is in education and somebody who has the experience of the old-fashioned, traditional way of schooling and has been very successful in it, I would like to pick your brain because coming up in like a week or two, I'm going to be having a friend of mine that we went to school with, and she's a grade school teacher, and she's going to tell me about how school's been going over Zoom. So for right now, it's just for me, it's just an outsider looking in, and I want to kind of lay a foundation on what might your thoughts be with, you've got different approaches to education for our youth, grade schools. College, that could be a different conversation, I guess, but there's 3 approaches so far that I know of, and it's just going back to school, which there are a few, local states and such that are doing that.
Right.
There's the hybrid approach, which is half in school and half online, and then there's the fully online. Can I get your thoughts on what you think of those different approaches, and then I'll kind of develop from there?
So I have 5 kids and 10 grandchildren.
Okay.
And 4 of the kids and 8 of the grandchildren are in Ohio, and 1's in Texas. But even in Ohio, different school systems are doing it differently. So you have some that are fully in school, like you said. You have some who are half and half. I don't know if any of them are fully online. But here in Maryland, in my county, they're fully online right now. And so, talking to different the students and parents and stuff like that, it's an adjustment. I think the bottom line is we want to be safe. So however it needs to be worked out for everybody to be safe, that's the best approach to it. For me, with younger kids, they need the socialization. They need to learn how to interact in groups. They need to learn, how to stand in line and take your turn and share and do all those things, because when you become an adult, those things are expected of you. Doesn't always happen, but those things are expected of you. So I think as the younger ones, they really need to have that socialization. Now, does that mean that they have to go back to school full time? No. How about if they do online stuff 3/4 of the day and then have a meeting place and do some kind of social activity or something, so that would give them the socialization, but it would also give them the study time stuff. And what I find interesting is a lot of students that I have come in contact with, if they were one-on-one with the teacher, I think they would learn better versus in the classroom. Because in the classroom, what happens? You're looking at your buddy, or you're doing all kinds of stuff. In the old days, you would pass notes. Nowadays, you're texting people on your phone or whatever, or on your watch, or whatever the case may be. So, the other thing is that because COVID happened so fast, nobody was really prepared. Last spring, it was like it hit. We don't know what to do. We're going to try to do what we can do to make this happen. And so then it gave them all summer to prepare for the fall. Fall came. Some school districts said, we're not ready yet. Some said, yes, let's go ahead and do whatever, online or in classroom or whatever the case may be. So, it's whatever the school systems think that's best for them to protect teachers and students, parents, everybody. I don't know. I took classes, my master's, when I got my master's degree, I took classes, a couple classes online. I hated it because I'm an interactive kind of person. I want to see, I don't want to see your face on the screen. I want to see in person, because in person you get those other nonverbal cues from body language, and not just the face. So, I like doing that. And also, when I was teaching, the same thing. You like that feedback, and it's immediate. It's not. So if I'm on the computer with you and there's 40 other people, and I have a question, how does that work? I mean, do you have to wait your turn, or are you yelling and the teacher's trying to decipher who's speaking so that they can go to that person? I don't know.
There is a raise your hand feature. So like when we did Zoom in law school, I could raise my hand and it like digitally pops up to the teacher and the teacher can like,
Okay.
address it that way. But I completely agree. But I think you raised the strongest point that I have not heard any politician or anybody in this conversation, teachers, come up with that concept. I really have affection. So before I develop it, we have kids in our neighborhood that are kind of going through this. We've been living it through them. And, they just started about a week ago and my mom's, washing the car. It's like 9:30 in the morning. And here comes the little boy named Alexander. That's why it's easy to remember. He comes walking through with his mom. And my mom goes, shouldn't you be in class? Like, it's 9:30. Why are you guys just walking the neighborhood? And the mom goes, oh, well, we got a lot of it done. And then we just decided to pause it and we'll take a walk. And my mom's like, pause it? She goes, oh, yeah, and he doesn't have that much left. And my mom's like, much left? It's only 9:30. Mom goes, yeah, it's only an hour and a half long. So here's his entire day now is boiled down to an hour and a half, and it's not even live. Like, I'm sorry, as a kid with ADD growing up, one of the hardest things was not flicking the kid in front of me and actually paying attention. I mean, if the person in front of me, I knew them, they were in the danger zone. I feel bad for them. It's something I outgrew, but I would definitely be like trying to get a reaction. I was a kid. And so for me, it's to pause it and not have to develop the need for attention, right? Like I was able to kick that habit because at some point I had to or I'd fall by the wayside. So the attention, all of that, but then also it's only an hour and a half long. So I think you developed one of the best concepts that I haven't heard yet, and that's have everybody do it online or whatever, and then everybody, like recess, you get an hour to go be a kid and learn how to be. I mean, so here's the other part. Now they go to class for 2 days out of the week. They go to the building. But guess what they got rid of, Paul? They got rid of music, gym, and art. Again, what's the point? You are not going to third grade to learn, Kant's theory on morality. No. You're going there to literally paint and develop, portions of your brain that are only developed through those practices. So now we're getting rid of probably the most important part of their education. So I really like everybody go home. I don't care. Do it from home. And then everybody come to the park at, 1:30. But then, at the same token, that does burden the parents. That's expecting parents to be able to sacrifice that hour in the middle of their day or whatever.
Well, who's at home with the kids anyway?
How about this? There's a girl that, like my age, who graduated, couldn't get a job in teaching. So now she's getting paid $20 an hour by her neighbor to be her teacher, AKA glorified babysitter. Because she's not doing the teaching.
Exactly. Or get, I came up with the concept of Uber school, I think I called it, something like that. So you pick up the kids and take them to school. You're the bus driver, but you're a private, like an Uber driver, picking up kids, taking them to school. And so this concept of, okay, we're going to meet in the park at 1:00, and we're going to do outside painting. And so you have these Uber drivers who can pick up 5, 6 kids. They go around, pick up the kids, and they drop them off at the park. And now you're teaching the kids in the park, and then they deliver them back home again.
I love that idea in theory. The only thing that concerns me, and it's because, I just think everybody in this world's a pedophile, but it's like I'd be super worried about just, Uber drivers picking up kids. And then, think about how much we have. Bus drivers aren't the highest striving members of our society. And we don't really trust them as far as we could throw them. But at least they're like, you can't get too far with 30 kids. That'll keep you accountable. But I feel like 4 kids opens the door to maybe not like inappropriate behavior, but, when we were in law school, there was a girl in Harrisburg that, you know, she didn't go to school with us, but my mom was super worried. She was waiting for her Uber. Somebody pretended to be an Uber, called her into the car, and she was found like 8 blocks away, bloody everywhere. I mean, she was just, so it's one of those, like, you open the door to people pretending to be the appropriate person. And
Well, I mean, they would have to be vetted, and
right,
you know,
that's the key.
they would have to go. They would have to go through. They would have to go through the same procedures bus drivers go through. You know, you get vetted, you get a criminal background check. I mean, basically, all it is you're a mini bus driver. You're going around picking up 5 or 6 kids and taking them to a location someplace, whether it's the park for painting or the playground for whatever. I mean, so it's that centralized activity that everybody can hang out for an hour, and then give the parents a break too.
No, I really like that. But, you know, another thing I was just thinking about a little bit ago when you were kind of developing the idea, as I told you, I was in Nashville this past weekend. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't feel unsafe on a plane at all. I mean, it was super nice. And I was laughing. My dad's biggest pet peeve on a plane, you know, when you land and it takes maybe 3 minutes for everybody to get up, get their luggage, and funnel off.
Right.
Sometimes when you're in a hurry, it feels like 10, but even 10 minutes isn't a lot. My dad's biggest pet peeve is that clown in the back that jumps up and sprints as far up as he can. My dad will get up and be like the arbiter of the aisle and won't let anybody through. And the nice part was they created this, like, they were strict to it, that you stayed seated until the row in front of you cleared out. So here we are in a flying tin can in the sky with no air, and I didn't feel unsafe at all. Now, granted, I understand I'm not in the you know, generation of concern. You know, my age kind of allows me the privilege of being ignorant in that respect, but I didn't feel unsafe, and we're kind of on top of each other and whatever. But why can't you do a classroom where you go, everything's, I mean, they already do the squares and everything, totally spaced out, but why can't you go, all right, we're doing it in rows, you stay seated, and you load the bus, like even the aisle, you could keep the hallways strictly sparse full of kids. You could really cut the number down by just going, all right, these 4 kids, you go, these 4 kids, and then, you know, you could do buses similarly too, the way you do it. How can a 50-year-old feel safe on a plane, but a 7-year-old can't feel safe on a bus?
Right.
I feel like there's ways around it, and I understand our biggest concern is the teachers. And that's kind of what I'd like to more have a conversation about, because I know that I'm going to have a different perspective than maybe you do, and definitely what teachers do. I would drive my teachers up a wall, except for one, because she was the greatest teacher ever, and she knew it. When I started debate in high school, one of the topics that stood out to me the most, and I became super passionate about it, I would do projects on it. After there was a month in debate that I was focused on this topic, it was beyond captivating, and I'm coming back to it again. It's like resurfacing like a phoenix out of the ashes. I am a fan of merit pay, especially in public schools. And my basis on that is, once you get tenure, you're comfortable. The whole goal isn't to, you start, I understand these teachers are underpaid, and them having to take the burden financially on running their classroom. You could see it after a long time through a public school career. It takes the wind out of your sail, and now you're just trying to get tenure, get paid. You got 3 months of the year off. As terrible as it sounds, but again, that's why I want you to keep me in check here. I sit here and go, if a 50-year-old woman doesn't want to do it because she feels unsafe, she's allowed to feel unsafe, and I'm not going to discredit that feeling. But also, there's a young, vibrant, ready-to-work 24-year-old who is ready to take on the risk. Maybe it is a risk, but she's willing to because she wants to kickstart this career, and she's passionate about it. How do you feel about, just capitalism being capitalism? And if there's someone willing to do the job and they're capable and apt to do so, we let them do it, because this is something we need done. We need school going on now. What are your thoughts?
I think in a normal circumstance, I agree with you. In this circumstance, not necessarily. It's like wearing a mask. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not going to wear a mask because I'm not going to get it. And that's true. You may not get it, but you may pass it along to somebody else who may get it. So it's not necessarily protecting you, it's protecting me and everybody else around you. And if a teacher says that she's not willing to take the risk, okay, I don't have a problem with that. So don't go to work and you know, you can have this time off until we transition into whatever it is that's gonna end up being. And the same token, so give the 24-year-old an opportunity.
Right.
Okay, this teacher A is not going to come to class, but we're going to give it to teacher B and let teacher B get her foot in the door. And now she has, because a lot of times when you're young, you know that it's a catch-22. Well, you don't have the experience. How am I supposed to get the experience if I don't get a job? So at least in this instance, it gives them an opportunity to get in the door, and now they can put it on the resume. I have some actual classroom experience, which might open up another door down the way. But you know, I think that everybody is still kind of thinking that it's going to go back to normal. Classroom's going to completely open up, so we're not going to put too much emphasis on alternate ways of doing things. We're just we're going to get by and do what we need to do because maybe in January everything will be fine and everybody will be back in class and it'll be just like it was before. So that's a feeling that I kind of get, is that we're not gonna change a whole lot of stuff. We're gonna make it happen, but it's gonna go back to normal.
So I got to ask you, because just judging by the tone, it seems like you feel like that might be a misguided belief. Do you think there's ever a chance we're going back to normal? Because I know at least half this country, if not more, they're going to do everything in their power. They want it to, that they'll make, there will be a normal over the horizon. Or do you think this is it? This is the new future?
I think, would you consider normal anymore? You know, when I started law school, you know, I came to law school with my pencils and my pad, and 95% of everybody else had what? A laptop.
Yeah.
That's the new normal. You know, so the norm changes, and maybe we're looking at the new norm going forward, especially for high school students, because it's certainly there's a lot of colleges that are going to this online and have been before COVID even started.
That's true.
They
That's really
went
true.
online. So maybe that's the new norm, and so, you know, and maybe this hybrid thing is kind of it could be a new norm where, you know, you do most of your work online and you show up, you know, once a week or something to have a conference with the teachers and the professors and stuff. Who knows? I honestly believe that eventually there's going to be not a cure, but, you know, the shot that's going to be available.
Yeah, the vaccine.
The vaccine eventually. You know, I don't know that it's not going to happen before the election, and it probably won't happen before the end of the year. But I think what's going to happen is the FDA is going to have so much pressure on them to get this thing passed through that they're going to do, instead of, you know, 1 million case studies, they're going to do 100 and look at those really hard and say, okay, we're pretty confident that this thing will do the trick, and so then they'll let it out, and then you'll have, you know, a lot of people that say, I don't want to take it because it hasn't fully been researched. And then you have a lot of them that say, I want to take it because I want to get back to normal.
Right. And that's,
and it's just like, you know, it's just like the workplace. What's the new normal? You know, maybe a lot of companies are going to say, you know, we don't really need brick and mortar anymore. We can save all that. We can save all that money on all that because our people are just as productive at home. Why not?
If not more productive. And we are seeing that. You're saving a lot of money on real estate. You know, it makes sense. But I will say, you know, not to, you know, trickle too far off of education, but, you know, like I said, I was in Nashville this weekend. There were 12 of us celebrating our buddy's bachelor party, including like his dad and brothers. And it was really terrible that the state made a law that you could only have 6 people at a table. So now we've cut our group in half. now we're at these tables. What are you going to Nashville for? Are you going to twiddle your thumbs? Oh, you can't dance. That's okay. Don't come to the dance floor. Okay. So
What?
while you're stuck at your
You
table,
can't. Wait a minute. You can't dance.
dude, I should have taken a picture and I could have put it on here. My friend was so mad. Literally, they had signs on the dance floor, no dancing, but they still had the music playing, live music, but 6 at a table. So now not only is your group split in half, but again, so okay, maybe dancing's out, but what are you going to these bars for? What are you going to Nashville for? I'm not kidding you, Paul. That was the grandest population of pretty women I've ever seen in my life. Every person was gorgeous. It was like a fairy tale. So what are you going to Nashville for? Oh, every group of girls you pick up some girls. I mean, we're young guys. You bring them over, you start chatting with them. The bouncer would come and go, 6 at a table. The girls have to leave. Oh, are you standing in front of your chair? The bouncer comes over and yells at you. You have to be seated the entire time.
Oh wow.
And so seated, and your mask. They would always get you for your mask. But that's the other fun part is when you were in your little circle of 6, you could take it off. Oh, and they were only allowed to be, bars can't be open. Restaurants can.
Right.
So you're at the, Kid Rock's Honky Tonk, and they're dropping off at your table to make it a restaurant. Boats of like 2 French fries, a little pretzel nugget, and a tater tot that has to be 12 days old. I mean, it was disgusting. And then my buddy had these guys in our group that were drunk enough that they're just like, "You're not eating that?" I'm like, "No." And they're like just wolfing down stale fries. But yeah, it was terrible. And so it's like, and my dad won't let me come anywhere near him. He's like, "I got to wait 2 weeks," because the last day we were there, I'll put the video up. I took a Snapchat of literally like the old days, my normal, what I'm used to. People able to, you could bump into a girl and go, "Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, hi, how are you?" And that's the beauty. Plenty of people, no masks in sight, and it was glorious. And again, I completely agree with everything you said. I just feel like there needs to be, at this point, it's no longer May. At this point, I should be allowed to go. I am no longer fighting for my grandmother in the nursing home to go to a baseball game. I want to go to a baseball game. I would like to go have 3 girls. It was literally a group of 3 standing next to 6 people. Hey, get out of here. Get out. It's like, what am I here for? So
You should have gone and got another table.
well, but again, they were so limited in capacity that like every table was accounted for. So they would, as people would leave, they would fill that table up immediately, and it was bizarre, and so that was it. Honky tonk. Oh, forgot the best part. So yeah, no dancing, all of this, great street, Broadway Street, but it all closes at 10:30. So then everybody goes to Franklin County, which was that bar right outside of Nashville, and because it's a different jurisdiction, they're open till 3:00. No masks, stuffed with people, and so
Can you dance?
No, yeah, no mask.
No, can you dance?
Oh, yeah, plenty of dancing. There was no lacking of honky-tonk dancing. Paul, I don't know how familiar you are with this, but I really kept asking people and no one had an answer for me. Do you know what a honky-tonk is?
Well, a honky tonk is
I love this.
one of those little bars that's set outside the main drag, and it's like your local yokel kind of thing that you kind of stumble into. It's the friendly bar that's may have dirt on the floor, or you're drinking out of mason jars, and it's a place where the local musicians would come and just put on a jam session. Do you ever see the movie not the Blues Brothers, but Roadhouse?
Oh yeah,
Patrick Swayze. That was kind of like a honky tonk, because they had the well, no, it's in Blues Brothers. They went to that bar and played, and they had the fence around the band, and people were throwing beer bottles on them and stuff. That's kind of like a honky tonk. Anything goes.
You'd be amazed, your waitress at the honky tonk, you go, "Okay, what's a honky tonk? And they're like, I'll be honest with you, I don't even know. It's like, what do you work here?
Well, what she should have said is it's a drink. And you could have said, well, can I have one? Sure. You should just go back and mix some junk up and give it to you. Here you go.
And at Miami University, we called that a trash can. You
Yeah.
just get a trash can and just.
Yeah. Yes.
So, I guess bringing it back, do you see as like I guess you make a very strong point. There's just new normals. You know, we adapt and things change. But I also see an appetite for the way things were. You know, we're not asking to ride horses around, and we're not asking to, you know,
But you know
send
what? You know what? It's always that way. It's always that way. Anytime there's change, people wanted to go back the way that they remember it and the way it used to be, because you get used to that. You know, you're used to whatever it is. I'm comfortable with that. But now all of a sudden, here comes a change. I'll give you a great example. Lotus 1-2-3 was a spreadsheet software that was the first one that came out that I used. And so Excel came out, Microsoft Excel, and it's like, I'm not using that. I love Lotus. I know how it works. I know how to manipulate it. I'm not changing. I'm comfortable doing this. I don't care. And then all of a sudden, everything's going to Excel. Nothing, and there's nobody that's managing Lotus anymore. So eventually, you have to change. So then I changed, and I was like, oh, this is much better. And I think we do that. I think we want to stay doing things that are comfortable. I'll give you another great example. ATMs. Okay, and this is before your time because you grew up with ATMs. But older people, when ATMs came out, it was like, there's no way. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing direct deposit. Forget it, because the government's controlling all that, you know, and all this nonsense. And now it's the new norm. I mean, everybody has direct deposit and everybody uses ATM. And even now the norm has changed because everything's done on the phone. I do all my deposits. I do all my transfers on my phone. It's like, that's crazy to think that that's come along that way. And that's the new norm. But there's a lot of people that like it the old way. I still want to bury my money in the backyard in a coffee can. So things change, and you're right. And people want to hold on to what was comfortable, because changes sometimes are not comfortable. And so
that was a really great answer. I mean, no matter how uncomfortable it makes you, the train keeps moving, and you either keep up with it or get left behind. No, I love that. Did you see there's, you know, because of COVID, that was kind of the catalyst of it all. But are you seeing that there's this real push to get rid of change, like loose change? Like they want to get rid of change altogether. And then soon, I'm worried they're going to just, I mean, we all use, us guys and stuff, we use Venmo, which, you know, you were telling me you have PayPal. This is like the next step where you just, from your account, just send someone money.
I did that. Like, I sent my daughter some money through Venmo. So
you have your Venmo? Does that mean I can finally pay you for
money?
Our Super Bowl squares?
Hell yeah.
I didn't forget. I'm like a Lannister. I always pay my debts, even if it is almost an entire February later.
I know where you live.
I wasn't going to forget. So now that you're on Venmo, I'll have to find you. But that's what I'm saying. It's funny that, like, we're already socializing this, but here I am, you know, the little, libertarian who has total disdain and distrust for his government is like, we can't have a monetary system like Bitcoin, because then they just turn your money off. I mean, that's the scariest thing. And am I like the old person that you were talking about? We can't have ATMs. Like, but is that not a legitimate fear? I mean, I guess, is it my perspective looking back going, come on, guys, that was a little unrealistic. And are they going to do that to me?
Well, it's a legitimate fear. Same thing with putting my money in the bank. It's a legitimate fear, because not too long ago in the 80s, savings and loans went belly up, and a lot of people lost money in a bank. I'm not supposed to lose money if I put money in the bank. It's there. It's in your vault. I can come get it. No. And so it's a legitimate fear that the stock market, it's a legitimate fear that you could lose all your money, just like in 1929. I mean, it can happen. And so, yeah, as changes go on, there's always things that could happen. So do we go back to exchanging stones because we're afraid that all these things are going to happen? No, you move forward and you deal with the risks that are there, and somehow you try to figure out what's going on. So I heard a story about the coins, about there's a shortage of coins.
Right.
Someone told me, and I can't remember what this guy's position was, but someone told me that the reason that there's a shortage of coins, the majority of coins that go back to the feds come from laundromats and vending machines.
I guess that makes sense.
And since COVID came out, all the vending machines are shut down because people, touching the machines and all that sort of stuff. So you're not getting that coinage that's being turned over and stuff.
Wow. So one of the things that I want to flush out, just because I'm not as familiar with it, but you were talking about, we could definitely talk about the stock market as well, because after my episode with Jake Carnow discussing financial advising and the stock market, Paul immediately called me up and was like, okay, so to kind of fact check, he was my Snopes fact checker. And I was like, see, that's what prompted the podcast, because I was like, Paul, we need to liberate people from their ignorance. So before we even go down that road, I am curious, though, Paul, if you could kind of enlighten me in the history. When we look at banks, you made a really strong point that's kind of got me a little flabbergasted that we still have trust for. Before I get on that, I was sitting at a bar with my friend a couple years ago. We're talking about Disney. Disney's making this. Disney bought ESPN. Disney's doing this. And you're like, I looked at him, I go, how much money does Disney have? They have to be one of the richest entities in the world. So we Google it. And they have, like $300 billion. Whatever. It was some crazy number. $300 billion or something. And we're like, wow. What's the top 10 richest entities in the world? And so we Google that. Disney's nowhere near it. And we look it up, and I imagine maybe Amazon might have wiggled in there at some point. Who knows? But the last time I looked a couple years ago, they were the energy company of the world. It was 4 American banks and 5 Chinese banks. So when you look at the world, the richest entities, we're not talking sheiks who own the oil. We're not talking about, billion-dollar companies that own American entertainment. It is the banks. How are they taking so much money? And so you make a great point. You go, well, I put it in a bank. It's security. And yet for some reason it isn't. And for some reason they get bailouts. And for some reason we continue to trust them and use them. So my question for you is interest that enticing that we are willing to take on the risk because it's just extra money? Are we still being shammed with the security of a bank even though it isn't that secure? And why do we trust these entities that are making hand over fist profit playing with our money?
First, what are you going to do with your money if you don't put it in a bank?
I'm putting it in my coffee can and burying it in the backyard like a pirate.
Exactly. Okay. And that's a viable solution, but then you're only dealing with cash.
Right.
You have no debit card. You have no checks. So every day you need to go back in your backyard, dig up your coffee can, take out your allotment for the day, go spend that cash, and then come back home. Convenience is one of the things that the banks thrive on. They give you a debit card. Before they gave you checks, so you could write a check and withdraw money out of your account. Then ATMs came along. Ooh, I can get some money out of a machine from my account. Now you have debit cards that you use that takes the place of a checking account, and you can also get cash back at almost any place. It's like, cool. So convenience for you as the consumer is what one of the things that drives the banks and why you keep putting your money in the bank. Convenience. Your money is protected. You know, you've heard of the FDIC. It's the Federal Deposit Insurance Company. So your money, I think it's now up to, don't quote me on this, but I think it's like $250,000. So if the bank goes under, then the federal government steps in and will honor up to $250,000 of your deposited money in the bank. Savings and loans didn't have that when they crashed. They didn't have their own insurance company. They do now, but they didn't before, which is one of the reasons why they got so much trouble. So that's security there. So if the bank ever goes under, at least your money is insured. All right. You know, and the bank is there. So you're putting all your money in the coffee can in the back, right? And you want to buy a house. So you go out and dig up all your coffee cans. Your house is $150,000. You dig up all your coffee cans and you have $80,000. How are you going to buy the house? You have to go to the bank.
That's right. Wait, so why does it have to go through the bank? I have the money here.
Who are you going to go
the
to?
IRS doesn't trust me?
Who are you going to go? Who are you going to go to get $80,000 or to get the other $70,000 for your $150,000 house?
Loan. Hey,
Yeah.
I have faith in myself. I mean, I'm.
Wait, but first off, I'm not selling you my house. I'm not selling you my house on faith. I want $150,000, right? I don't want.
Some of
I
us
don't
have
want
to
80.
live in mom's basement a little longer.
I guess a long time. I guess you're gonna have to bury some more coffee cans. You know, and you could always go to loan sharks. You could always go down to the cash my check place. I don't know if they're going to give you $70,000, but you know, and then the interest rate that you're going to pay on those is out the roof. So I mean,
so the loans I get, but the second point you raised was the security. Now, the interesting thing is as we started the conversation off with, these are the richest entities in the world. They are companies in the business of making money, and yet, you know, it's so funny. I have, you know, extremely liberal colleagues my age that, you know, are just like, communism, we all need to share our dollar. And what I'm realizing is not enough people lose half of their check every 2 weeks. Once you start losing half of your hard-earned cash, you really start caring what the government is spending your money on. And so it is interesting. It does give you security, but half of my paycheck is taken every week to ensure the security of one of the richest entities in the world. So,
well, they're not insuring the entity. They're insuring your money,
which is what's keeping them alive and profiting.
No, yeah, your money's keeping them alive and profitable.
Think about this. If you didn't have every bank's security, you would choose to put your money in a bank, not necessarily the one that gives you the most interest, but can assure you the most security. If there's a bank that has gone under before and, well, people have lost their money, can't trust them, or there's some way to develop a consumer relationship that I feel I can trust the fact that they will secure my money and I'll never need it is beautiful that I can have a government and I can have the privilege and luxury to complain that they're going to bail me out when I'm in trouble, but also I'm not in trouble because of the government or my mishandling of my money. This bank is a failed business, and now some may argue but again, that you want them to have to, you know, deal with their own consequences, but at what cost? The cost of the consumer and American citizens.
So two things. One, I don't agree with bailouts.
Okay.
You know, if your company's going under, your company's going under. Period. And it seems like the bailouts were there not to save the company so much, but to save payroll and payouts for employees, CEOs, CFOs. Okay.
Yeah.
If the bank fails, Now here's another thing. If a bank starts to fail, and the federal government knows it well ahead of time before the bank actually fails, the federal government can and will go in and take over the bank before it gets to the point of failing. So they'll take over the bank, and hopefully then it won't fail, and they won't have to. And for me, if the bank fails, the bank fails. What they're insuring is your money. So if the bank fails and goes out of business, you as a consumer won't lose your money.
That's cool. Okay.
That's different. That's different than a
bailout.
A bailout. A bailout is bailing out the company so that the company can continue to do business. And why would you bail a business out that has gone under? And the only reason you would do that is the confidence that the rest of the consumers have with the whole industry. So when like Lehman Brothers and I forget who else got bailed out, it was because the government was afraid that everybody was going to lose confidence in that whole industry and start withdrawing their money, and then you would have a meltdown, in the financial world. So that's the reason why they did the bailout. But I don't necessarily agree with that. Go in and take it over, fire all the people who were in charge, because obviously they're the ones that messed it up. You're gone. We're going to come in and take it over and do the best that we can to save what we can and move forward. But they didn't do that. They bailed them out and they gave them all this extra money, and
No, that was a really great response, because I was blurring the lines between like a bailout and securing the consumer using the company, and that I can completely support, and distinguishing it that way really helps. So do you ever, I guess, in this transition to digital currency, then how are the banks going to evolve for me to need them? Because I'm seeing all I need is an account like the number on my Bitcoin account, and nobody's going to steal that from my backyard. Nobody's going to come in my front door and try to rob my house.
Right.
I don't need to worry about it being in a coffee can. So how do you imagine banks will evolve to still be pertinent? I mean, probably loans. Is that going to be the only thing they'll have a use for?
I don't see currency completely going away.
I hope.
There's people that still use landlines. So currency is not going to completely go away. So that has to remain there. And then the way that the transactions occur between banks and businesses and the Fed and everything else like that. I mean, there's got to be a middleman that kind of keeps everything going. So, and loans but it's funny because there are a lot of private lending groups that are out there now that are not banks. So if you need a $50,000 loan, they're out there, and the interest rates aren't exorbitant. I mean, back in the day, if you had to go to a loan shark or something like that, yeah, you cut your arm off and give it to them. But now, I mean, the lending clubs, because they're not making any money off of investments, and so if I can lend you $50,000 and I'm making 6% off of that $50,000, that's a whole lot more than I'm making in the stock market. So why not? So you get these people that get together, instead of an investment group, it's a lending group. And they're lending money to individuals, and they're making their interest off of loaning the money to you, the individual.
Oh, that's really cool.
So, if that transition continues to happen, then the banks are less useful.
Yeah, and so I got to be curious then, just because I think it just is my knee-jerk reaction that I've developed and become, I don't know, unconsciously reliant on. Do you feel like banks are a good thing, a bad thing, just a moot point? Like, how do you feel about banks?
It's kind of like anything else. When they first started, they're a great thing, but their usefulness, I think, is kind of waning. Unions are the same thing. When unions first started, great thing for American workers, but nowadays there just doesn't seem to be a need for that as it was back when they started. And so banks are the same way. I mean, when they first started, savings and loans and credit unions and all that, they're great for when they started. But now it's kind of like, just like we talked, there's lending groups that are out there that can loan you money, and we really don't do cash anymore for the most part. I mean, I don't walk around with cash when I do, but most of the time you don't have cash in your pocket. And if you ask people, if you just walk down the street and ask people, "You got any cash?" I guarantee you that the majority of them is going to say no. They have their debit cards, and that's what they use. So
That's very true, especially if they think you're going to be asking for some change.
Change.
That's always the answer. I don't have any cash.
I don't have the cash. You know what you could do? You could set a Starbucks outside the Starbucks drive-through window and see how many people go through and give them cash.
That would be super interesting.
I guarantee you 90 to 95% of the people that go through Starbucks drive-through window give them a debit card.
Now, are you taking a dig at the type of people going to a Starbucks, or I'm just kidding, because it would apply at a McDonald's. I completely agree.
Right.
But I also think the hipster types at a Starbucks are surely, you know what, they're not even you. If I guarantee you don't see anybody pull out a card. They are using their phone and tapping it. That's the new one too.
True.
And you know what's funny? Do you remember when that first came out? Everybody was worried that people would be able to take scanners and scan your pocket. It's like,
right.
How are you going to not feel that? But also, it's Apple. They got security.
Well, I'm waiting for chip insertion.
That's coming with our vaccine, Paul. I bit my tongue. You wanted it. It's coming with the vaccine.
So I'm gonna have a bit put right here, and every time there you go. Here's my $4.59 for my Starbucks.
Have you heard about the new technology that Elon Musk is developing? So it's called Neuralink, and he spent the last podcast on Joe Rogan. He spent 3 hours talking about Neuralink, and it's going to be I don't think it's his Tesla, his SpaceX, one of his companies, maybe the Boring Company, I can't remember. One of his companies he thinks he's going to totally change and evolve the human existence with Neuralink. And what it is it's a little patch like this big, and they cut into your skull, and it attaches to the back of your head, and it'll literally be like an iPhone in your head. Instant internet, instant information, and he swears by the fact that this is a little much, I don't know if I agree, but he says within the next decade, he guarantees no verbal language will ever be spoken again. He goes, with emojis and GIFs and all this other stuff, we are communicating more effectively and faster than ever, and now it's going to go to digital communication.
What's funny about what you just said, just yesterday, we had a friend over for dinner, and we were talking about, they were talking about bad grammar on Facebook, how bad people's grammar are and stuff. And I said, in near future, we won't even have communication. We'll either be talking by phone or some other form of non-verbal communication.
See, now we don't need to fight for your ability to use words like axe in the courtroom. We're just going to be digitally communicating. So all, accents and everything will go out the window. And unfortunately for you that didn't read, you'll get stuck using appropriate grammar, or, I'd be curious how you could sneak in slang with a computer. Like, does Siri just, can you abbreviate, or is it's already just being, communicated to your neurons? So
yeah, it won't be abbreviated. It'll be spelled out. So.
I like that.
Yeah.
What a wild experience. Yeah. So it's so funny that you just had that conversation, though. That
I know, weird.
Again,
I can see it. I can see it happening. I mean, I can see somebody working towards doing something like that, trying to link, what we have in our brain system to do all this sort of things. I can see that.
I mean, we're pretty much already there. I mean, you have a smartphone, right?
Yep.
I mean, this thing, for at least the majority of our society, nobody can put it down. It is an extension of us now. And, I mean, I'll be honest with you, my, organic self is smarter because my friend started a habit when we were in high school, and I totally stole it from him, and I will do it forever. Anytime I hear somebody use a word that I don't know what it means or recognize, I immediately Google it. And probably by the third time you Google it, you will remember it, and you just extended your internal dictionary a little bit. But also, I mean, how many times are we sitting there and we go like, wait, who was the president that did X, or when was such and such? We're sitting in a bar and we go, how much is Disney worth? And we can just pop it up. Or what are the top 10 companies in the world? I mean, it is incredible that you could say, well, you didn't know that. Well, neither did you. But also, we are now expanding our organic knowledge with this device that now we have infinite information, and it kind of opens the door to problems though too. I was watching, and if you haven't watched this, Paul, you should so watch it so you could see the hell road that your kin is about to go down. It's called The Social Dilemma. And it has all these presidents and CEOs of huge billion-dollar social media companies. They either are no longer a part of it or they were demoted, whatever it may be. They were there at the beginning. Oh, okay, we're still here. I had something pop up on my screen and I thought it canceled us. So they had all these big wigs from Instagram, Snapchat, all these different companies. And it is if anybody in the audience hasn't watched it, totally, I couldn't compel you enough to watch it. It's on Netflix, because on this podcast all the time, we're talking about how Facebook is building algorithms that, they realize user engagement is up when they upset you. So there, for some reason, I'm not seeing my best friend's posts, but I'm seeing Joe Schmo from 8th grade, who I haven't spoken to in forever, because he's saying something political that drives me up a wall, and it gets me to, and so that's just one anecdotal piece. They go through all the science of, it's no longer the science of copper wires and aluminum and glass screens make this thing work and bounce messages off a satellite. Now they have, the degrees these people, they are so incredibly smart that not only to be at that position do you need to know the technology and be an engineer, but now we need you to be psychology doctors. So, and we are finding ways to hook you and keep you forever. And I only go down that road because, Paul, it's crazy how we are headed down a very dangerous path where it is awesome. We have all the information at our fingertips, but it also opens the door to the largest wave of misinformation we've ever had. And it's it should be dumb. They talk about Google and they say, no, you rely on Google's, search result suggestions because you think that's the most popular. You think that's the most referenced one. If me and you Googled something right now and we just put in the first word, you and I most likely would not have the same suggested result immediately. And
right.
The order following it isn't going to be the same either.
Right.
All tailored to what they think you want, what you need. And then we wonder why we're so entrenched and can't have a discourse about real issues because we hate the other. And this, I want to ask you first, did you have this growing up? When I was growing up, I saw go to government class and I'm like, this Democrat Republican crap makes no sense. Why are you voting for somebody because they're a Democrat or they're a Republican, not because they're the better candidate? It made no sense to me. And here I am at 26 finding myself entrenching into a side. And so I got to ask, was this going on then? Is it worse now? What did you experience, and have you noticed an evolution?
It's been going on forever, and your family is Republican or Democrat. Will always vote Democrat. Will always sit behind the Democratic guy, and there was no leeway. Today, I think, especially in this upcoming election, we either love the guy or we hate him. So we love him, we want to vote for him to stay in. We hate him, we're going to do anything we can to vote him out. So it's not even a Republican and a Democrat, it's we like him or we don't like him. And I hate the two-party system. hate it. You have two choices. What happens if you don't
Out of
like either one of
350
them?
million people.
What happens if you don't like either one of them?
Like the country, I want to say the majority of the country. I got to imagine the entire country doesn't. I just got to imagine to further your point. Yes, there are people that love their candidates, sure, but they are a anomaly. I feel like we are settling, and the fact that we can't even be excited about whose name we're going to write down to guide us through this country. I mean, I completely agree. And did you know Sweden has 13 candidates? And they're the size of like New Jersey. We are a tribe of 50 states. And Paul, you would know better than anyone, if there's a beauty in traveling across the country, living in different states, you realize quicker than anything that every place you go is utterly different. That's the beauty of this country. I lived in Cleveland, Ohio for the majority of my life, and then I go down to Cincinnati area for college. And you could have convinced me they were two different states, how different they are, just in the same state, opposite sides. And
Right.
that's one state. You go
Right.
to Pennsylvania, compare Pittsburgh to Podunk, meth lab, Harrisburg. I mean, they are night and day. And so when we have such a melting pot of people, it's like, why wouldn't we want 50 candidates? At least a candidate from every state. I mean, the fact that 3 is asking a lot, and we can't even take a third one serious because we're so entrenched. It's insane.
Well, the third one is never taken seriously because he's never given them an opportunity to be taken seriously.
That's
If any time you look at it, the independent that ran, sometimes they're not even allowed to be part of the debate. They're not raising enough money and the bar goes up higher every time. So you have to raise $50 million in order to run for president. Why? Why can't I just make paper signs and put them out there? Why do I have to have $50 million in a coffer someplace and say, anyway, the two-party system, it doesn't work. It really doesn't. You have like I said, you either like the guy or you're hating, and that's the bottom line. And people that hate him aren't going to vote for him. They're going to vote for the other guy. What does he stand for? I don't care. I'm just not going to vote for this guy. And I've heard that from many, many people. It's like, wow. That's
100%. And Paul, I live on this.
Let me also interject this. So, and I was thinking about this today because we had a pre-conversation about we were going to talk about Ruth Ginsburg.
Yes.
Ginsburg. But a lot of people think that like the president has so much power. Oh my God, if he gets in the office, he's just going to do crazy things. Okay. He's not. Our forefathers were smart enough to figure out that one of the ways to keep our country from becoming a dictatorship is to have 3 separate branches of government, all policing each other. So one cannot have enough overwhelming power over the other. So this president gets in, he's going to do all this stuff. I'm going to put up a wall. I'm going to boycott trade. We're going to make illegals illegal. We're going to do all this stuff, right? He made this whole list of things that he's going to do. How much of that has he been able to accomplish? None of them, because he doesn't have the power on his own to do that. So the same thing with there's this argument about who is going to appoint the new judge. Oh my God, is it going to be this president or the next one? It doesn't make any difference, because first and foremost, it's one judge. There's 9 of them. Number 2, they just don't willy-nilly say, oh, I don't like the law, so I'm going to change it, right? They have standards that they have to live up to. And we, as we learned in law school, there's about 10,000 cases that are presented to the Supreme Court every year. They oversee 100 of them, just 100 cases. And those cases have to be based on some sort of law typically it has to be constitutional law,
Constitutional. Right.
and it's just not. Oh, I'm the new judge now, so gosh, I don't like the way this law is written, so I'm going to look for a case, and we're going to bring it to the Supreme Court so I can change this law.
Right. I'm
doesn't
getting rid
happen.
of Roe v. Wade.
It doesn't
Okay.
happen. It doesn't happen that way. But to your point about our smartphone and Google and all that sort of stuff, there's so much stuff that's out there, so much misleading information. It's not necessarily false, but it's misleading sometimes. And people pick and choose what they want to hear because, oh, see, I told you this judge was going to change this law, or see, I told you this governor or senator or president's going to do this, see, because he's doing it. And they have that information that's out there saying that's what's happening. And it's just, and again, our forefathers, I don't know how they did this, but they came up with this system, and it's 200 years later, 250 years later, and it's still good. It still governs themselves, and it still polices everything that's going on. So it's.
Paul, you nailed like 3 nails on the head. I mean, back to the misinformation thing. I kid you not, and this drove me up a wall. 2 days ago, I saw a girl on my Facebook share, and again, this is another person. I haven't talked to her in forever, so I only know why she's on my feed, but she shared an article that said Trump is planning on writing an executive order that prevents him from ever leaving office, and it will make him an infinity president. And it's like the fact that you don't even feel stupid sharing that, and then there's 24 people, oh my God, he's the devil, I told you, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, and then this is what drives me the most crazy on Facebook. In parentheses, under it, it says approximately 2-minute read. Sorry, folks, but with such a deep, complicated issue, you're not going to be able to get it all in 2 minutes. That should tip you off from the bat. And so to kind of bring it back to your point of, this two-party system's our problem. Look at the last election. You have somebody like Gary Johnson who constitutionally needed to get 16% support to have to and have a constitutional right to be in those debates. He did it, and CNN just goes, nope.
Sorry.
We just say no. And so they just make the rules as they go. Even the rules that are there to protect us, they ignore them. And so I've really become attached to this theory that I'm going to take with me throughout my legal career. And hopefully, it's going to be an uphill battle, but I'd love to see a type of change like this. You see, one of the problems we deal with during these election cycles is you have me and you, regular folk, who they're supposed to be pandering to. We're told this is a representative republic. They're supposed to be representing us. We are only allowed to give about $2,500 to a candidate. A super PAC, a corporation who under, those Supreme Court justices who decided that they are legal entities, they're citizen entities, they're allowed to give infinite money. So me and you are allowed to tap out at $2,500. You could work your ass off, become a Jeff Bezos, and the most you out of your own pocket could give was $2,500. And yet these super PACs, and then we wonder why these politicians, they don't care about us. They don't pander us. They pander to the person who just gave them the $50 million they needed to be able to run. So I'm telling you, here's the answer, Paul, and I'd love to get your thoughts. I truly believe if we could wipe away with the ability for corporations to fund campaigns, and you give every citizen a $50 voucher or a $100 voucher, now, me as a candidate, I can't just focus on swing states because they're going to get me through. No, I got to go to North and South Carolina. I got to worry about Kentucky. I got to worry about Hawaii, states that have barely any electoral votes, but also the only way I'm going to get this plane off the ground to begin with is getting the funding I need. So I think that's the quickest way to, one, dismantle this, professional politician backdoor deals that control our government as it is, but then also bring the power back to the people. You are representing me, so pander to me, and I'll decide what's right. Not all. We're going to put on a little show, a little song and dance. Welcome to the Democrat primaries. And twice, the person we choose is not the candidate. If that isn't what you're burning a city down for, I don't know what's going on here, folks.
True, true. But it's so funny because even when they get in office, so I'm all for the people. My platform is I'm all for the people. I'm going to be out shaking hands, having rallies in high schools, and meeting all the people that I can. So when I get into office, do I come back to those same people and say, "So what's your thoughts?"
Nope.
No. No politician has ever asked me what my thought was on something. But yet he's supposed to be representing me. Or I've never seen a poll come out to the House, and they're going to poll.
Yeah, who's doing these polls,
50,
man?
50,000 people as to what do you think we should be doing on this issue? Never seen one. So
6 months leading up to an election, they're talking about, Biden's up in the polls, Trump's down in the polls. Who are they asking? Because I know me and none of my friends or my parents have ever been asked who we're voting for. Well,
right.
I guess maybe we have. We just ignore every text that comes through, or when it comes through, I just give them. You know what's been the funnest, Paul? I'm gonna, not to get too sidetracked, give you a little window into my entertainment. When I get a text from these Democrats going, "Are you voting for Joe Biden?" It is so glorious texting them. No, I'm voting for Tulsi Gabbard. Ugh. Oh, it eats them away. That is a waste of a Democrat vote. And they will literally text me for like 20 minutes. And I'm like, oh, and then, you give them the guy's brain dead. She wasn't even allowed in the primaries. So once you want to start, listening to my opinion, I'll start giving it to you. But the fact that it's completely ignored shows me that I don't need to give it to you to begin with.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, Paul, I got one final thought for you to wrap it up with, and it kind of ties it all in a bow. So, on Thursdays...
Before you get to that thought, let me throw
Yes.
something in here real quick.
Please.
My daughter sent me a cartoon, and it said, the little girl was talking to the mommy and said something about, "Mommy, how did you learn all the stuff that you did?" And she said, "Well, Dad taught me all that." And the little girl said, "Oh, did he Google it too?"
See? It's perfect. That's
There you
perfect.
go. There you go.
But, okay, so, Paul, every Thursday on my Instagram, we do an Instagram poll. And what I realized is the more poignant questions, it's the rethink tank. Like, I'm trying to, provoke some thought here, folks. But, man, the only thing people want to do is, like, come up for a funny acronym for WAP, But when you ask them what was the beginning of time, was there a beginning of time, people don't get, even though there's a $20 gift card, that nobody's really, as provoked. So I've been hesitant to ask this question, but it's one that I was kind of mulling over with my dad, and I am extremely interested in. Okay, I believe, possibly ignorantly, when you see the older generation, so I'm working Zoom.
Meaning older generation, meaning what?
You
Over
can draw
50
the line. Those that identify,
over 50?
This is liberal. This is 2020. Those that identify as the older, if you got your senior discount at Denny's, you're encompassed in this comment.
Yeah, I just got a text. President Trump, Nancy threatened to impeach me if I fill vacancy on the Supreme Court. I need you to step up. All gifts 8 times matched. Act now.
Oh my gosh! See how that goes? It like just pandering and
I'm sending my money. 8 times a penny.
yeah.
8 cents. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. So I have this ignorant belief that comparatively to the older generation, so like for me, a pandemic hit. We had to, on the fly, start doing school through Zoom. And that's what we did. We learned a new technology. It was pretty easy. I was an audience member, so I never had to learn the intricacies of operating it from the host perspective. And I get a job with the judge. She needs somebody to run her online Zoom court. So fake it till you make it. I'm here. My dad's an engineer, and he is laughing. How did you, of all people, become the technology expert at the court? It blows my mind too. But here I am. I'm
But
the
you've done it.
expert comparatively to everybody else, and I'm running Zoom. I'm teaching the older bailiffs, like across the court, in the other courtroom across the hall, how to run Zoom, all these things, and it was hilarious. My mom laughs all the time. It was like pulling teeth trying to teach this woman Zoom. I mean, it was terrible, and she gets so mad at me. Look at that. You just added a whole new step. That step was not there yesterday. I'm like, Ruth, I've done the same thing every day. Every day. You just didn't put it in your notes. I don't know. So she gets super upset. And so this is a long-winded way of developing the question that I personally believe it'll exponentially go down this trend, but I feel like as generations are exposed to more sophisticated technology and even at a younger age, it leaves them with a higher ability to adapt with technology. And so my question is, when we had my mom an iPhone in 2010, it was, again, like Ruth, pulling teeth. I don't want this thing. This is too much. Now she's obsessed with it. But I imagine maybe 5-10 years down the line when, holograms become a thing or whatever, I mean, that's going to be a technology that my mom might not be able to adapt to. And I'm seeing it kind of with my dad. He's in the profession of being sophisticated in technology, and yet it's slowly pulling away from him. Social medias, social trends. And I guess the social aspect is inevitable. But what I'm trying to ask you is, do you think every generation, no matter what, will severely be extinct and buried by the newer generation of technology? Or do you think as generations are exposed at a younger age to higher sophisticated technology, that we will be increasingly better at adapting with the technology, and you'll have an 80-year-old that will be able to figure out, holographs and stuff because they were having iPhones at 3 years old?
I think it depends on why it's being used.
Okay.
So my 87-year-old mother likes Facebook. Why? Because she can keep in contact with other people that aren't in the area. But she doesn't do online banking. She doesn't even have a computer. She has a little pad. So the only thing she does is Facebook and some computer games. So all the technology and all the things that are available technology-wise with that pad, she doesn't use, but she uses those things that are useful to her.
Oh, wow.
And I think that's what happens is the groups of people will use the technology as it pertains to them in their daily lives. So I'm sure I haven't even tapped into what my smartphone can do, but I use those things that are important for me in my daily life. And I use online banking, and I obviously use maps and all that sort of stuff that's on there. But there's a ton of stuff a ton of apps that are out there that could be used to improve some of the things that I do during the day. But I'm comfortable with the way I do things, and these are just an additional tool for me to help become more efficient or into tune with what's going on. So I think, and I see grandchildren who start at age 2 and at age 4 can show you how to use your smartphone.
Right.
And so for them, it's a necessity.
Wow.
Again, when I started law school, I didn't have a laptop. All you guys did, because it was a necessity for you, even going through college, to have a laptop. It wasn't a necessity for me. I did the old-fashioned take notes on a piece of paper and then whatever. So I didn't find it useful to have a laptop in class. I found it, and to take the test, forget it. I'd have spent more time correcting the stuff that I was writing than I was writing. So for me, it wasn't useful. For you, it was useful. So it depends on when you're indoctrinated to the new technology and how it's used in your daily life. And if it's used for, you know, purposes that you're going to use it all the time, then you're going to use technology. If you don't, you're not going to use it. And so the generations will use what's useful for them and not the rest of the stuff. New cars, same thing. I'm sure there's people that buy new cars every year, and there's a ton of things that are in there that could be used. They're not using them. You know, like CarPlay with
Right.
Apple. I'm sure because almost all the new cars are coming out with the screens that you can use GPS and all. I'm sure there's a ton of people, older people, that have all the new cars. They don't have a clue, nor where they use it, because it's not of any use to them.
So here's my question for you then. Last question. That was a very strong and well-developed answer, and I think it does the best for answering it for me. But of course my mom came out to let the dog out. But but the question I have for you then is, and I agree with that. You use it based on the necessity and use it plays in your life. Do you think the younger generations, like your grandkids that's teaching you an iPhone, at 2 years old, they have the need and use for that technology? Do you feel there's a possibility they'll be able to cultivate and continue that use into their later years? Or does, no matter what, things just simple down and you don't like change, you kind of like it the way it is, and you're stuck in your ways? Or because you had that appetite at 2 years old to know all of the iPhone, that, yeah, maybe I won't know all of CarPlay. I guess the theory more played out is my mom may not know all of her CarPlay, but when I reach her age, I'll know more of the future CarPlay than what she's using. And then hopefully maybe in a few generations, you maybe not do away with it completely, but the gap gets a lot smaller.
Well, and the thing to remember, it's going to change. So what you know now in the way of technology, 20 years from now, it's not going to be around.
That's true too.
It's going to be new, advanced technology,
And faster.
faster, more uses, different uses. And so what you're comfortable with now and using now on a daily basis. So you're a Zoom expert now. 10 years from now, there won't be any Zoom. There'll be something else. Will you be something else expert? Maybe, maybe not.
Probably not.
But you know Zoom. just like I know everything there is to know about Lotus 1-2-3.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Good for you. It's not around anymore.
But then you got to know Excel, and I guess that's true too. I
Well,
definitely don't know all of Excel.
Out of necessity.
Right. That's true.
They got rid of 1-2-3. So you have to move on to the next thing. You either move on to the next thing or you don't do it anymore.
Yeah, or get left behind.
Yeah.
No, I love that. Paul, that was a great response.
Thank you. It's kind of like the trades. Woodworking, being a plumber, electrician. You know, those things are lost unless you have people that specifically go into those fields. When I was growing up, everybody kind of knew how to do some plumbing. Everybody kind of knew how to do some electrical work. But nowadays, I don't want to.
I think that's a stronger player.
So that's my point with technology. I don't want to. I don't want to take the time to learn everything there is about smartphone, because from my perspective, it's not going to give me any advantages to anything.
That's a great point.
So why do it? I have other things that I'm more interested in learning and doing. I have a red car that I like to drive, so I'll spend my time driving a red car versus doing my iPhone.
Wow. That's pretty cool. I mean, but it's true though, and you're seeing it all, like it happens. And I guess the ignorant part of that perspective was that you think there's a set trajectory. And as long as you get on the train and hold on and try to keep up, it may take you with it. But like you said, there is no predicting where this goes. even the greatest experts don't have an idea of where it leads to down the road.
Right.
And that just means the unpredictability, but also just the overall change makes it something that is so foreign. It'd be ignorant to expect your ability to adapt with it, right? Like, I don't know.
Well, I think that if you kept up with it, then you can progress with the progression
Human
of
nature.
technology. But
Kind of.
at some point in time, you may say, one, I don't have the time, one, I don't have the energy in what I want to focus on is something different than keeping up with the technology. I'll pay somebody else to do it. I'll pay somebody else to come in and do my electrical work. I don't need to keep up on that stuff. I don't need to know any of that stuff. There's somebody out there that I can pay to do that. And it's the same thing with technology. I don't need to keep up with that, because if I ever have a question, I'll ask my 4-year-old grandson and they can tell me.
Right. No, that's very true. Paul, as always, this was an incredible conversation. We took it to the ends and its lengths, but I appreciate it. Guys, as we wrap up here, make sure to check out the new website, www.rethinktankpodcast.com, where you can get all the podcasts, and it's a one-stop shop for everything we got. But if that's too difficult or it's easier, just go to YouTube. You can find us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter. But Paul, thank you so much for joining us. Now that we have this capability, I'm going to be getting you on more often. And
I'd love that. I love to be on more often.
Listen, this every time I can say when I finish, your conversation is always the most fruitful. I always get the most out of it.
Thank you.
And you always have the most well-developed answers. You know, I don't have to be on as much, because I know that it's not like a one-word answer of like, yes, Neuralink is bad. And you're like, okay, I'll keep going. So I appreciate it, Paul. And you really give great insight.
Thank you.
Plus, I don't think we talk to people enough that aren't in our circles and our generations, because there's a lot to be learned from speaking to people older than you and younger than you. So I appreciate it.
Agreed. And just like we finished up with the technology thing, that, you know, when you think about generations past and the things that they had to work with versus what my grandchildren had to work with today, it's worlds apart, completely worlds apart. And it's interesting to see how people have developed and economies had developed, countries had developed, and just humanity has developed from those technological advancements. So,
and what's crazy is how far we've gotten in such a short period of time, which
yes.
really makes me curious what, someone like me is going to see in their lifetime. What's 50 years from now going to look like?
Yeah.
10 years is not the same as right now.
Correct.
So regardless, Paul, we're doing this again. I appreciate you. And thank you guys for listening. And we'll get to it again.
Thanks very much.
Peace.